pointed at him.
We're back, reconvened from executive session. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of June 19th.
Motion to approve.
Excuse me, our note taker's not that.
Oh,
Where is she? She was in
Is
charge.
it Jim's office?
thank you, Chris. Stop the,
Get one, you gotta go get it. Getting one is hard enough.
Been there more to us.
1 minute?
Time more.
Oh, okay.
I tried to say it
Let's wait 1 minute to get our secretary. Sorry about that.
Right.
happened last time, so.
We didn't get too far. So Pat stopped me pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so now again, the minutes of June 19th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I abstain.
And Brittany abstains.
Oh, no.
No, you don't have to abstain.
No, sorry, I wasn't here.
The next item, there's number 4 on the agenda, which is the Master Developer RFP. We have 2 items on there, which is a screening committee. First, on the screening committee, that's going to be tabled for tonight. Our council has to have some further discussions with the Williams Council, and we will continue that to the next meeting. We're still working out a few details on that. We want to get it on the agenda so we could be as expeditious as possible of getting the RFP and Master Developer selected. We're a little early on that, so I apologize. I know it's on the agenda, but again, I apologize, and we hope to be back to the next meeting with a plan on that. And then also the Chief Procurement Officer selection, that is just going to be taken off the agenda. That right now we're not going to need that, just in talking to council, so that is off the agenda also. So those 2 items. Moving on from there, where the next item is the status of the agreement for the parkway maintenance between the SRA and the Southfield Landowners Association, and ratification of extension to or termination date to August 1st, 2019. I've talked to the Labor Council, our legal counsel on this. He has asked that we ratify an extension that he has endorsed, and give himself the authority, along with the chairman of the board, an extension for up to 30 days after that to be able to continue our negotiations with the Southfield Landowners Association.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Brittany and Dave? That's unanimous. The next is the treasurer's report.
Good evening. I've got a few transfers for the year end I'd like to get the approval of the board on. The first one is a transfer of $2,000 from IT equipment to computer software maintenance. This should cover the final cost in that line item, mainly which has been increased because of the fact we did a financial software conversion this past year. The next transfer is $1,000 from IT equipment to IT GIS services, and this is the final billing for the GIS map and application development and data creation that was procured by Paul to increase our GIS capabilities. The next one is a transfer of $300 from short-term disability to unemployment benefits. This should cover our final charge by the state on that. A transfer of $100 from vehicle maintenance to rubbish removal contract line item, and this is for some additional charges for unexpected items that were dumped off. Like a lawnmower or something with tossed in the trash. And then the final one is a transfer of $5,800 from miscellaneous charges to grounds construction and maintenance. And this is charges for the securing of the property related to the master developer's exits. There need to be some temporary fencing put up and other items that Jim had requested.
Excellent. Any questions on the board?
I'll move we approve the.
I'm sorry, I have one question. Is the GIS public domain yet? Is there anything we can access?
Not as of yet.
Any idea what it might be? Or?
We're hoping to work with the Washington Capital Management on trying to sync up our sort of information that we kind of put together and have sort of one-stop shopping for that, so.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
I'll move we approve the transfers as delineated and stated by the treasurer.
A motion to a second.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That's unanimous. Okay,
The next item was a ratification of the agreement between Washington Capital and ourselves. I've spoken with Attorney Galvin, and he said that there was really no significant changes.
okay. And we had looked at that the
We
last
approved it
meeting,
last time for you to approve it based
Yeah.
on no significant changes.
and we had no significant change. Again, Attorney Galvin saw that, so that's a good thing moving forward, that we'll have a reimbursement model in place for the SRA moving forward. So can we have can ask for a motion on the reimbursement agreement?
This is to approve the reimbursement agreement that we outlined last week.
Yeah, so do we need to vote?
We already approved it.
You already approved it last.
We approved
Okay,
it.
all right,
Just
so
had to
then,
sign it.
okay, then that's fine, okay. Next on the agenda is land use administrator, salary discussion, and possible vote, that will be continued to our next meeting. And then item number 8, SRA office hours, again, this was a small legal matter, we just want to confirm that we were complying with Fair Labor Standards Act. We talked with council, and right now the office hours will remain the same for the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, so there'll be no changes in those. But again, something we just want to get on the agenda to get in front of in case we needed it. We have no topics reasonably anticipated by the chairman 40 hours in advance of the meeting. Next, I'll take public comment. Yes, Mary?
Could you put on a future agenda about the trail system and the fact that it's not being maintained and that people are dumping things on it and breaking through the chains that are across that are not permitting trucks to go down, but they're vehicles going down and driving around the whole thing and they're not supposed to be?
I'll put it on the agenda for
Yeah.
next item. Absolutely, Mary. Any other public comment? Yes.
Can I ask a question in regards to the master developer RFP process or no?
We haven't delineated, again, it was a little premature putting it on. We're just trying to stay aggressive with the timelines with with Washington Capital at this point. So all we're doing is we're a little bit behind. We had a few meetings today that we need to include a few things, and again, our council has to review how that process will look. We don't have a definitive process at this point. So we don't have, you can ask a question, I don't know if I'll have an answer for it, but I'll certainly give it a shot if you have. Yeah. If I can't answer, I'll certainly let you know.
Like I said, I wanted to ask a question about the process of choosing a new master developer. My name is Laura Mascaro. I'm a resident here. I've lived in the community with my husband for 5.5 years. As you all know, the increase of residency within our community has brought forward certain challenges, some of which have had a great impact on public safety. I own a dog walking business, so I'm outside for several hours a day walking in and around the entire community here. On a daily basis, I see a number of public safety issues that are very concerning, not only for myself, but for other residents, people walking outside, small children, other people out walking with dogs, etc. The issues only seem to be getting worse, and my fear is that someone is going to seriously get hurt because of ignorance. Both residents and visitors have been allowed to block streets, parking crosswalks, block fire hydrants, park vehicles in lanes of travel which are not designated as parking areas, drive well over the speed limit, among other various traffic incidents. Residents have shared our concerns with neighbors, with the policing office for those of us who live in apartments, with the town of Weymouth, including the police department, all in an effort to put a stop to these offenses. Elstar did not make public safety a priority here. After many complaints, concerns were just ignored. My question is, how does the SRA plan to make public safety a priority in this new process to find a new master developer? And is there a specific plan in place to encourage and, more importantly, enforce compliance?
So the answer to that is we don't have an answer. We don't have an answer, but it's something we will be sure to have on the agenda as we move through the process. We know public safety, our board members, that residents have conveyed that. I will say that in your respective town, continue to notify that community. If you see things like fire hydrants or crosswalks, because the police can, the local police department, whether it's in any of the 3 towns, can enforce it. And I don't know why. If parking in front of fire hydrant, I know, it's a police matter, so.
I've been told I've asked police officers in the time that I've lived here about certain parking ordinances, and they said that it's not their responsibility per se, or they don't have any control over it because it's within the development here.
Okay.
So it's hard because you get different answers from different people and nothing really seems to get done, so it's.
We'll follow up with most of the residents live in Weymouth. We can follow up with the city of Weymouth and have, see where that lies. And we'll see if we can get some answers to that. But as far as for the RFP, we understand the safety and security of the project, and I think it relates to Ms. Parsons' point, is that securing the property and making sure it's protected. We have, concerns about wetlands protection, habitat species being protected. All those things are a priority on the list when it comes to an RFP. So it will be sure to convey those to the Washington Capitol, who is the de facto master developer at this point. And we'll convey to them also the concerns of some of the public safety issues. We'll convey those over for you. All right. Mr. Romes.
Yes, I'm with the Landowners Association, a new board member, and we have taken some recent action that you may not be aware of. I can update you on separately, but basically we sent out a notice to all residences, and I think the apartments are having trouble distributing to the people who live in the apartments from what we've heard. So it went out like a week ago. The enforcement has begun on parking violations, and we're trying to identify now what the patrol network's going to be. It's private. It's an extension of what the Corcoran apartments have had for a number of years, the same vendor, and we're going to start putting more signage in the community in different streets, and we're going to start the process and try to work with the town of Weymouth where we need to, if we need to. There's been a lot of history with it back and forth with the town. We're going to take some very basic actions that we've already started to take. Number one, communicating to the people who live here that there are rules, and there are rules to be abided by, and there are consequences when those rules aren't being met. So, towing is a real action, and once that starts, there'll be lots of change in that regard. As far as the speed limits go, signage is under consideration right now. We were just talking about it as a board earlier today. So we'll continue that dialogue and get something going, because we all share your concern. It's a very dangerous neighborhood these days, and we need to take some steps. And the SLA is trying within our rights and our authority to see what we can do. We've taken our first steps just recently. Sounds like you didn't even get the notice, but we've heard.
We do get them, and we get them repeatedly. But
No one believes that anything's going to happen.
That's
It's
not-
my objective as a resident and a board member to make sure that some things start to happen, so people will recognize that it's changed, that they'll know that someone got towed and some kind of action has been taken. But you're right, when you talk to Weymouth Police, they just sign off on it and say it's not their deal. They cannot do anything. We've had those same conversations, so that's pretty much.
Thank you, Bob, for that update, and good to know that the enforcement's going to kick up. So we thank you for that update.
Chuck,
Yeah.
can I say something on that subject? That's the other issue with the vandalism. They've been tearing off signs.
Okay. Well,
And speed limit, they don't pay attention.
we know that.
Oh, I know. It's the Wild West out there.
I will say I listened to the Rockland Police, and they are fairly aggressive on the parkway of enforcing the speed. I hope none of you have gotten a ticket. I apologize for being around. No, but it's
Don't apologize.
Yeah.
When they are there, a person went flying by me, and there was a motorcycle cop, a Rockland motorcycle cop at the roundabout.
Yeah.
And she may have thought that she wasn't caught, but he caught up with her once she got over the line and bagged her at the set of lights
You
in
smiled the
Rockland.
whole way,
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
you?
Yep.
Any other public comment? Seeing here are none. Our next meeting. No.
I got a comment.
Yep. Okay.
You can go back.
Yeah. We can go back. Always go back. Absolutely.
Would the board be willing to not do the RFP if, say, there was a company willing to come in right now with the money to prove that they have the money, they've done projects like this before?
We don't have the necessary authority to do that because we don't own the land. So Washington Capital owns the property. So it's a
So
private
Washington Capital has to,
approve.
they have to approve it?
Yes. They own the land.
When does Washington Capital come
They're
to
here
these
now.
meetings?
No, they come to these meetings regularly if we need them to come to a
I mean,
meeting.
'cause I'm speaking about vendors that did work for L-Star that haven't been paid,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of money. And
What's your name, sir, just for the record?
Chuck Pompeo,
Okay.
name of the company Rudy V. Pompeo.
I spoke with the owner of your company today, with Ron.
That's my brother.
Oh, okay, Ron, sorry.
No, that's Rudy.
And Rudy.
Right, so there's three of us.
Okay, so I think I understand your concern, but
Well,
we're
it's
getting,
a big concern, because when this project started, we were here since day one, and it was always the board's, local jobs for local people. And, I don't wanna say people didn't do their job, but people didn't do their job. Letting L-Star come in, when they had legal problems going on in North Carolina, they weren't properly vetted. And, I see whose fault it was. I mean, it's the job of the SRA.
okay,
to-
okay,
to-
I'm gonna,
to the
this
vetting.
isn't an
Yeah.
item on the agenda, and I will tell you, going back, that the L-Star was assumed as the new master developer. The SRA did not pick that master developer, so I'll
Okay,
stop you there. And
Well, who picked the master
it
developer?
was assumed under the legislation, so we did not pick them, this board did not pick them, and
And then my only other concern about still having, Washington Capital is that, Washington Capital was cutting checks to L-Star without knowing where the money was going.
that's
Yeah.
something we're not involved in, sir. So I cannot speak on that. That's
Are you
where-
in charge of this whole place?
No, we're not. No, the master developer is. The master developer owns the property.
And there's legislation that governs this, and there's a MEPA process that governs this. So Washington Capital and the pension fund are going to have to go by those processes.
We are off agenda.
Right.
We have not put this on the agenda. We will put ourselves in an open meeting violation. We cannot talk about this. We can put this on the agenda, but
Can I ask one other question then? It's
it's
not about that. What does SRA do then?
that's not on the agenda. The SRA is identified under enabling legislation. You can go on our website and it will identify what our roles and responsibilities are, and you can look it up there.
Under the, topics not reasonably expected, can we put on the agenda what actually rules this and governs this place for people to understand? Because there were a lot of vendors that weren't paid. Wildlands Trust was one of them. These people were one of them. And then, as he says, for Washington Capital and a pension fund to lend $100 million without vetting Raleigh. But can we put it on the agenda for the future?
Okay, all right.
This is all on the website. You can read every word that's available.
Well, why can't it still be on the agenda of the SRA?
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
The problem with this is that we used to, under the old legislation, we had authority, and you used to work under the old legislation, so that's why you're saying what you're saying, because you're accustomed to the fact that the board controlled everything at that time. In 2014, the legislation changed and took a lot of that authority away from this board. That was passed by the House and the Senate and signed by the governor. So from that standpoint, legally, we are now only a permit granting authority. We don't have the legal authority that you guys worked under when this board, was constituted from 1998 up until 2014. So I understand your frustration, but unfortunately, this board's hands are tied because the House, the Senate, and the governor changed the law on us and took all that authority away from us.
So basically, we have no way to recuperate our money.
That's between you and L-Star. We don't have any authority over that.
Well, like I said, I know a company that's willing to come in. I guess they'll have to talk to Washington.
So Washington Capital is now in charge of this place, is that what you're saying?
Washington
No,
Capital.
they're a landowner.
They're a
Yeah,
landowner.
they're
Well,
landowners.
there's other landowners.
Correct.
There's only three: the pension fund, Endeavor, and Washington Capital.
Okay, all right. We'll put it out in
And then there's
One other
rare species
Who's in charge
habitat
of the
and
daily operations that go on here?
Park Service.
Who's in charge of the daily operations of this place?
It depends on which, it goes to each of the three towns.
Yeah, we're way off agenda and.
So we can put an agenda item.
Yeah.
Right.
And answer questions relative to
Right.
the operations, oversight, and financing, and I mean, we'll make it broad enough that everybody can ask as many questions as they want.
And where they can find the agenda and
Absolutely,
the
sure.
legislation and the MIPA
It's
process
totally
that has to be
reasonable. I wasn't trying to
followed.
be flippant by saying it's on the website. I just, you know,
But the
we're-
resource is there, we're just asking you to take a look
Right.
at it, because
Okay.
then you'd be able to give us more specific questions. You'd understand more about the limits of what our authority is. It's permitting, conservation commission.
But that's an agenda item.
Yeah, that's fine, we'll put it on for the next meeting.
Okay.
Our next meeting, I don't know if it's gonna be the 24th.
I'm a little confused, I'm sorry. So the master developer is now Washington Capital,
Well, they are.
or Washington Capital, Endeavor, and
Right,
the other.
pension fund, yeah, Carpenters Union.
There's no master developer.
Right, basically.
We defaulted and terminated Elstar. They're gone.
So who picks the next master developer?
The Southfield Redevelopment Authority, but that would be the first time we've done that. We didn't do that before. We assumed the master developer.
All right, so
The
you're
legislation
picking the
changed.
next developer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we want, that's the issue that we have. We
Okay.
want you to look at these people that have $38 million, they're $1 billion fine from New
So
York.
let me back up a few steps. The bank has to engage, and then they'll bring it to us to pick a master developer. To vet, because there's a process to go through to determine whether or not they're qualified or not qualified to be our master developer, and we haven't determined that process just yet.
So how
So,
long is this gonna take?
I don't know, because.
I mean, years,
No,
days?
I hope not years, because.
Well, I thought there was gonna be somebody here today, and it's delayed because they weren't ready with what they had to bring up, what they had to.
So there's a lot of moving parts to
Yeah.
this, and
I
quite
know,
honestly.
I've been here since the jet was, from the jet on, we've
Mr.
been.
Mario, I understand that, I certainly get it. Some of these questions I don't have answers to, and as far as the answers, we don't control some of it, we're way off agenda, we're gonna get ourselves in an open meeting law issue. I think we put it on our agenda for our next meeting, and we can have an open discussion about it, and I can talk to Washington Capital about having them here.
I thought they were here.
They're not here, not tonight.
They were here a week ago.
They were here earlier, and we were meeting with them all day, and that's just, they weren't here tonight.
But they were here at a public meeting 2 weeks ago. Were they not?
Right.
Well, I mean, if they're the master developer, wouldn't you think they'd?
They're not.
Well, whatever, you know?
So why don't we?
They're calling the shots, aren't they?
Why don't we
Yep.
schedule the 24th?
They're calling the shots, they should be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Why don't we schedule it?
Yeah, July 24th is the schedule for the next meeting.
You know, if I could just interject for
Name
a
and
second. My
address.
name is Dan Costello. I'm the president of Costello Dismantling Company. Well, I'm one of the 29 vendors who is owed over $8 million for work that we've done. And as a class, would ask for some consideration from the board in selecting a developer to have some consideration for the work that we've done already here to improve this property and the money that we've owed, the investment that we have in this property as well. And we need some consideration for
Why
that
don't the agenda
in a
item,
development plan.
we can include comments from vendors or anything from, on the agenda item, something like that.
I mean, it's outside of our realm. We didn't engage,
Yeah.
we didn't engage,
Right.
you know.
And
Well, you're picking the next developer.
Yeah, I understand, but
But let's,
Do you want to speak?
We just have our own ideas about the new developer.
everybody.
How do we know?
along with about 40
Well,
other
I
people
mean,
that
Yeah.
have called me.
You know, but we have money invested.
Okay, I understand, but I don't understand, but the fact of the matter is we have a delineated duty, and
Okay.
we have followed that duty, and some things are just not involved because the legislation took that away, and
Right.
it is what it is.
So you're gonna make sure the new developer,
We
Have
want
the money
something that's
first.
well capitalized, that understands development in Massachusetts, that can pull the project forward and understand there's a long list of needs for the project and concerns. And that's where we're at. I mean, we're trying to work through it.
And we're trying to work through it too.
I know.
Because a lot of people of the 29 are close to bankruptcy,
Yeah,
Well, and
okay? And that's
there's
scary.
There's
Yes.
people that have called that fall over, but again, it's not our issue about the money they're owed. And there's been investments, there's been unsecured investments on this project. We didn't do that. That was
I
L-Star.
understand that, but
No.
we just don't want it to happen again, that
We
we
need
don't get
help
paid.
going forward.
We need help going forward, and that's what we're asking for.
I understand that, and I don't want to see people not get paid. Unfortunately, we did not engage those contracts.
are you suing Raleigh?
Excuse me?
Are you suing?
Yeah, I think
Costello?
Well, we'll be
At this
suing
point,
everybody shortly, because I can see that we're not getting backed
You've
up
got
here,
it.
so we'll be suing
Okay,
everybody.
all right. Next meeting is July 24th. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Stay here.
Sorry.